All right, let's just jump right in. Have you ever had that feeling that there's some kind of hidden rule book for the universe? A secret blueprint for how literally everything works, from the way stars form all the way down to the cells inside your own body. Well, today, we're actually going to give it a name. This quote, it just nails the big idea we're talking about today. It's from this old French play where a character is just totally blown away to find out he's been speaking in prose his entire life without even knowing what it was. And that's the thing, right? Like him, we are all part of this incredibly elegant, powerful system, and most of us have never even noticed. I mean, just stop and think about it for a second. Right now, as you're listening to this, trillions of cells in your body are working together in perfect harmony. Your heart's beating, your immune system is fighting off invaders, your DNA is copying itself, and here's the crazy part. You're not in charge of any of it. There's no little CEO in your brain sending out memos. It all just works. So that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? What is this invisible architecture, this system that has orchestrated life flawlessly for 4 billion years? A system so basic it shapes everything from atoms to entire ecosystems, but has somehow, up until now, stayed hidden in plain sight. Okay, so that's where we're going to start. We're going to name the blueprint. Because there's a certain power in naming something, right? Once you have a word for it, you can understand it. You start to see it everywhere. And once you can see it, you can actually start to use it on purpose. So here it is. The word is holonicracy. Now, it's a new word, but for a truly ancient idea. It's not democracy, which is ruled by the many, or autocracy, which is ruled by one. Think of it as rule by the whole part, a system where every single piece is its own boss, but at the same time, it perfectly serves the bigger picture it belongs to. I know, holonicracy is a bit of a mouthful, but it's actually built from concepts you already get. First up is the holon. That's just something that is both a complete thing and a piece of something else, all at once. Then you have hierarchy, but not like a boss and an employee. Think more like Russian nesting dolls. And finally, democracy, or just the idea of distributed power. Holonocracy is the magic that happens where those three things overlap. So the real key to all of this is the holon. The writer Arthur Koestler had this great name for it, the Janus paradox, named after that two-faced Roman god. A holon is always looking in two directions. When it looks inward, it sees itself as a complete, self-sufficient whole. But when it looks outward, it sees itself as just one small part of a much bigger system. And once you get that, you start seeing it absolutely everywhere. A cell is its own little world, but it's also a part of your liver. Your liver is a whole system, but it's just a part of your body. A letter is its own symbol, but it's part of a word. A word has its own meaning, but it's part of a sentence. See the pattern? Whole and part, always, at the exact same time. So this sounds cool in theory, right? But where do we actually see it in action? Well, let's look at the most successful, time-tested example in the entire universe. Let's talk about nature's proven design. If you really want to see holacracy in its purest, most elegant form, you don't have to look any further than your own DNA. Get this. A cell in your liver and a cell in your brain have the exact same instruction manual, the exact same DNA. So how do they end up with such wildly different jobs? The answer is gene regulatory networks. That is this system in action. And here's how they pull it off. There's nobody at the top barking orders. Instead, cells coordinate by sending out these chemical signals that basically act like promises. They commit to doing certain things. And from these simple local rules, this incredibly complex and stable order just emerges. Every cell knows its job, and the result is a system that's unbelievably tough, flexible, and efficient. Okay, so if this system is so perfect, if it has worked without a hitch for billions of years, that begs a really big question. Why on earth did we abandon it? And this leads us to the central conflict of our entire story, civilization's great departure. This image just says it all, doesn't it? Nature creates flight with elegance, with efficiency, something perfected over millions of years. And how do we do it? Brute force. We build these massive, heavy machines and then burn just colossal amounts of energy simply to fight against their own weight. This isn't just about flight. It's a metaphor for pretty much all of our systems. And you can see this brute force approach playing out everywhere. In politics, instead of self-regulation, we build these top-down centralized command structures that just lead to gridlock and polarization. In science, instead of a connected web of knowledge, we have these isolated departments that are constantly reinventing the wheel. And in economics, instead of distributing value, our models are designed to concentrate wealth. So here's the bottom line. The systems we've built, they're fragile, they're inherently polarizing, and they demand a staggering, unsustainable amount of energy and effort just to keep them from completely falling apart. We're constantly fighting against our own designs instead of letting them run themselves. But this is where the story takes a fascinating turn. Because our big departure from nature's blueprint has created a crisis. And that crisis is being made impossible to ignore by one technology more than any other: artificial intelligence. Which brings us to our final section, the choice before us. If you think about it, modern AI is the ultimate airplane. It is the absolute peak of our brute force design philosophy. It's centralized in these giant, power-guzzling data centers, and it works by crunching statistics. It finds patterns, but it doesn't actually understand meaning. It's the perfect crystallization of the flawed path we've been on. But that very crisis is showing us the solution. A totally new architecture has emerged, called the semiotic web. Now, unlike current AI that's just looking for patterns, the semiotic web is designed to understand meaning and context, the actual relationships between ideas. And here's the revolutionary part. It's the very first computational system in history built from the ground up on the principles of holonicracy. It's a genuine return to nature's blueprint, but in our technology. And the results of that shift are, well, you can see it right there. The difference in energy use isn't just a small improvement. It is a fundamental, game-changing paradigm shift. It's the difference between that brute force airplane and the elegant bird. And no, that is not a typo. A 400 times reduction in energy consumption. This is exactly what happens when you stop fighting against nature's design and you start working with it. The efficiency gains are they're almost hard to believe. But this isn't just about building a better, more efficient AI. This new architecture gives us the tools to apply these very same principles to the rest of society. It's a framework called the Mindshare Matrix Marketplace. Now, the best way to think about it is as a tool that lets us map out our most complex problems, whether in science, politics, or economics, and lets everyone coordinate and contribute solutions without needing some central authority telling them what to do. It's a practical platform for bringing holonicracy to our biggest human challenges. So this is the moment we're in. For nearly 4 billion years, nature was perfecting this incredible system. Then, about 10,000 years ago, we decided to go our own way. Now, in our lifetime, the cracks in our own systems are becoming impossible to ignore. And today, right now, for the first time ever, we actually have the tools to consciously choose to go back to the blueprint. And really, that leaves all of us with one final question. This isn't just some theory anymore. Nature has already run the experiment for 4 billion years. The results are in. The architecture works perfectly. The only question left is, will we finally be wise enough to use it?